Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the common mistakes that I see Amazon sellers make when it comes to going after brand direct wholesale accounts for their business. Now, in the grand scheme of things, everyone knows they need to be transitioning their business towards buying directly from brands because of the way Amazon has changed in the recent years, right? That being said, many people think it's as simple as just spam emailing random brands in order to get good results. Now, emailing is a big part of what we do here to get good brands to work with. That being said, there has to be a strategic way of going about the actual outreach process to brands and how you go about building a relationship with brands to get approval and authorization from them, get the best pricing possible, and actually navigate the process properly. The reason I say this is because a lot of sellers I see come to us, they've already reached out to a ton of brands, sometimes even 1,000 brands. But the problem is they have no real strategy behind what they're doing. And I'm about to go over the common mistakes that these sellers are making that are holding them back from actually getting good brands to work with. Starting off with mistake number one that I see Amazon sellers make when they're going after brand direct wholesale accounts for their business. Probably the most common mistake that I see by far is reaching out to household brand names that do super high sales volume and have super high sales ranks on Amazon, right? They're selling extremely well. They think, okay, if I'm going to make money, I need to go and find these brands that are doing 10,000, 5,000 sales per month on these products, right? Let's take Apple, for example. Super well-known brand. Everyone in the US knows who Apple is. And people think that that's the type of brand they should be reaching out to when it comes to actually getting brand direct accounts. Maybe I can buy from Apple. That's the first thought, right? That being said, pretty much every massive, 500 million, billion-dollar, maybe even trillion-dollar company out there is going to have some type of restriction against third-party sellers selling their products on different platforms like Amazon. Now, here's the thing. All these listings that you see here are being dominated by Amazon. Amazon. That means that Apple has a 1P relationship with Amazon where Amazon actually has an agreement with Apple to sell products on most or all of these listings. That being said, you're not always going to have every single listing be completely dominated by Amazon. So as you can see here, this listing has 31 sellers. And part of the process of reaching out to brands to find brands to work with is to find the ones that have third-party sellers already currently selling the products. But there's a huge difference between brands that are open to giving direct authorization to third-party sellers and then brands that people try to arbitrage because it's selling well on the platform. So this product right here has 31 FBA sellers, but not a single seller that's selling that product in this particular listing, at least from what I'm aware of, is going to have actual direct authorization from Apple to do so. So they will sell under the radar as long as they can until they get kicked off the listing, get an IP complaint or something, or get stranded with inventory. All types of issues you'll run into when you're trying to fly under the radar on bigger brands like this. They don't give direct authorization. It's a massive, massive time waster to reach out to these big brands. You're going to get a lot of no's, and those no's are going to lead to frustration and you questioning your process and if reaching out to brands even works in the first place, when we know it does, right? So that's the first mistake that I see sellers make, is thinking they need to sell these massive brands. Apple is, of course, a little bit out of the ordinary. They're massive, right? But any big brand like that you recognize and has super strong sales on Amazon, where they have a lot of 1P relationships with Amazon, you need to avoid these brands for your own mental health. You don't want to get too many no's in this process, right? So that's the first mistake that I see. The second big mistake that I see Amazon sellers make in their journey to getting brand direct accounts for their business is simply going to be overthinking the process, right? Overthinking the fact that brands could say no to them. Overthinking the actual outreach process of what to say in the initial email or in responses back to brands. What overthinking will do will literally limit your ability to even take action in the first place. The people that do well that we work with are people that go out and say, I'm going to reach out to these brands. I understand some are going to say no. I understand that I'm not going to be perfect in the outreach process to those brands, but I'm going to do it anyways, right? So don't overthink the process. You don't need to look through each and every little thing to make sure it's perfect. Now, whenever you're actually executing brand direct outreach, you do need to have a very particular system that you go by, which is a huge, very important part of the process. And you can look through all these brands that I have here, and you will find thousands of brands that fit our criteria from this search that I use. That being said, you don't need to really be too nitpicky on which ones to reach out to and overthink that process to where you're gun shy from doing it in the first place, right? So you need to have a criteria you're looking for. You need to avoid those big brands I mentioned in the first mistake that people make, and look for different context clues that the brand could be actually open to business. Things like having third-party sellers that are holding stock, or having a buy box rotation. They're not dominated by Amazon. They're not dominated by the brand. Just common things that you need to look for that show the brand might be open to business, and then go reach out. Don't overthink the process, because if you overthink it, you'll never reach out in the first place. You'll think that, the worst thing that can happen is the brand's going to actually say no to you, right? And at the end of the day, that's not that big of a deal. There's thousands of brands out there. So that's mistake number 2, is you don't need to overthink this process. Now for the third and final mistake that I see Amazon sellers make when they start trying to get brand direct accounts to work with, and this one might actually trigger some people, it's going to be going to trade shows. Now, trade shows have a ton of benefits. We actually had a representative that went to every single trade show for us for about 2 years straight. We paid him for every trade show that was actually available that we saw potential in, right? So I'm not saying that trade shows do not work, but many Amazon sellers that I speak to talk about trade shows as if they're going to show up, talk to some brands, and immediately have connections that are going to make them money, right? It really does not work that way. At ASD here, which is ASD in Las Vegas, which is one of the most popular trade shows that I see Amazon sellers go to, they literally call Amazon the A word for a lot of these brands. A lot of people go out there thinking they're going to approach random tables and ask to sell on Amazon and just shake hands and have the best deal out there. It does not work that way. If you're going to go to trade shows, they can be useful, like I said. If you're going to go, you need to map out the trade show, look at the actual brands or distributors or whoever you're looking to approach, look them up on Keepa, Smart Scout, whatever you want to do to determine that they might actually be open to business with you. Or else what will happen is you'll go out to ASD from August 25th to August 27th and talk to a ton of people and think you made all these connections and you're going to do so well, and not a single one of those things will turn into a solid relationship for you. I'll say one thing. Throughout that time of us attending trade shows, we did build relationships with brands that we had already worked with and shook hands and then put a face to the name, and that's all great. But the people that were in-house, our representatives that were reaching out to brands and building those relationships throughout that time of us also going to trade shows, completely destroyed the actual trade show attendance in terms of securing new brand approvals. So if you want brands to work with, you simply need to know how to position yourself. You need to know what brands to reach out to and why and when, so you're timing it properly. Can literally be done via email and some phone calls. And then you need to know what to say and how to actually navigate the process. It's extremely important to have a very specific system in place to not waste time. Any time wasted is time wasted that could have been spent making money with brands if you just had a good system, right? So we talk about the system that we use to get brands to work with and the experiences that we've had getting brand direct accounts. We've gotten literally over 300 for our company in the time of us doing this, and we pass along those lessons to you. Obviously, in the programs that we have, there's a lot more intricate detail in regards to how you can execute this process, or we can execute it for you. So make sure to look into that or talk to me and my team about what the options actually are. But I'm appreciative of having you here. I'm hoping you're enjoying the channel and the videos. Check out the rest of our videos as well, and I hope to talk to you soon.